right now. We are being recorded, and we are in fact live. So welcome. My name is Ryan Holger. I am with Temperature Equipment Corporation and National Excelsior and CES and Harry Alter and every other company that we partner with and own. This webinar topic is for Energy Star certified products. There are lots of versions of Energy Star things that affect HVAC equipment, but we are going to talk about Energy Star products in this particular case. So, what is Energy Star? Most of you guys have heard that brand. It's been around for 20 plus years. It is a well-respected, known brand. It has like an 85% recognition factor with consumers, so people know what that means. Everybody back in the day had an Energy Star computer monitor, you know, the big sticker in your face every single day when you saw it. So people know that name. They've got Energy Star refrigerators and appliances and things like that. There are 4 types of Energy Star things, programs, if you will, that affect what we do in the HVAC world. We're going to stay on one specific track, but as you can see from looking at their website on here, they have the 4 of them listed across the top: products, home, new homes, buildings, and plants. So what do those things specifically mean? Energy Star for Homes, if you've heard of that program, that is a program specifically designed for new construction homes, right? It's not really the appropriate thing you would do on an existing home. Well, not impossible, but it's really for new construction. There are a couple ways you can comply with that. You can do what's called prescriptive, which is kind of like code. Thou shalt do this, and this, and then you get your, your gold star. Or you can do a performance path, which involves calculations and energy rating. Right? So it works kind of like code in that regard, but it's not code. It's just an optional program. For HVAC, the person doing the work, the contractor doing the work, has to have a very specific certification appropriate for that particular program. So not just anybody can do that work. So the builder has to choose an HVAC contractor that has certified for that program. There's a big focus on load calculations and ventilation for that particular program. And the ventilation comes into play because they're making those houses so tight, the envelope so tight, that having mechanical ventilation is a big deal. So we're not talking about that today, but just so you know. Another program residentially is called Home Performance with Energy Star, HP, small WES. It's the worst acronym in the world because we can't pronounce it. All right, we like the acronyms that turn into their own little words. This is the version of Energy Star that's more appropriate for an existing home. It's a whole house strategy that involves sealing the envelope for air leakage, insulating, duct sealing, putting in condensing furnaces, and of course, once again, ventilation. Usually you'll see the BPI or the ResNet guys involved in this kind of program because they're doing the blower door testing and the duct leakage testing and that kind of stuff. That program needs to be sponsored by a local entity, in air quotes. Usually it is either a municipality or a utility or some kind of other, neutral entity like that. In our case, MIA, Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, runs a program here locally called Illinois Home Performance. And that is the Home Performance with Energy Star program locally here. The prime contractor has to join the program. It usually is the BPI or the ResNet guys company that's in the program, and he can sub-work out to HVAC guys and so forth. There's Energy Star for Buildings, which is the commercial version of Energy Star. It is a whole building tool, just like these other ones. So all 3 of these we looked at so far are really for the whole building. Energy Star for Buildings is for existing buildings. It's a benchmarking tool, which means that you basically compare your building to other buildings of similar size, square footage, and usage type patterns, and you get a score, 0 to 100, and you're always trying to improve your score. You can re-rate your building, you can make improvements, rate it again, see where you stand. So it's pretty cool in that regard. But today, the one we're talking about is the product category, so Energy Star certified products. This is a little different. It's not a whole building or a whole house type program. This is, I'm going to certify the widget. I don't care where the widget goes. I don't care if it goes in your house or your garage or your office building or whatever. I'm certifying the widget. The widget could be a refrigerator. The widget could be a furnace. It could be, anything like that. Typically electrical consuming things and some gas. So we're certifying the products in that regard, irregardless of the application they'll be used in. The nice thing about this is engineers and architects can specify that Energy Star HVAC products be used on projects. It's very easy to say that. You can just say, I need an Energy Star furnace, and that could be all you say. Or you can spell out the exact specifications, which is probably preferred because then there's no confusion as the bidders look at it. But it is something that is fairly easy to specify. And the whole goal with these products is all these Energy Star products are more efficient than the legal minimum thing that could exist. So, right, in the case of a furnace, you can have 80% furnace. Well, 80% is not going to get you Energy Star. You got to do better than that. So these are all better than the legal minimum type things that people can build. So it's kind of a way up. And it's also, generally speaking, a cost-effective thing. It's not, oh, the absolute most efficient thing in the possible to be built. It's just really efficient, but still price competitive kind of thing. Locally, and even not locally, but a lot of projects ask for Energy Star certified equipment because they are getting funding related to that. So some of the money to help make their project happen is coming from certain sources, and those sources may require that you use Energy Star equipment. So you may get requests for Energy Star furnaces on a condo housing project or something like that. I see Scott's mentioning that there's an audio problem. His audio is going in and out. Just curious if anybody else is having that same issue. That way I know if it's on my end or not. I am working off a new computer, so maybe that is something that's going on different with my microphone. So I'm not sure. Most people are saying it's loud and clear, so maybe it's just on Scott's audio end. Although a couple other people, okay. All right, a lot of people are having audio issues. Well, that's interesting. I don't know how to solve that at the moment, other than moving my face closer to the microphone on the computer here. So I'll try to do that for now, and then I'll have to research options in the future. I'll try to talk slower, which I know is hard for me. I'll try to talk slower so things don't chop in and out as quite as badly just because of my verbiage. When it comes to the first product we'll look at, it's furnaces. So we have Energy Star certified products. When you look at the website, which this is a screenshot of the website, you'll notice on here, you can see my mouse, there's typically little tabs on there. So there's an overview, and it gives a description of what an Energy Star furnace is in this case. There's a specification, so you can go read exactly what is required. And sometimes with certain products, they'll give you some buying tips. Not all of them have that, but some of the bigger product lines will have that. And then to the right, there'll be a little button here where you can click Find a Product, and it'll help you find a specific model and manufacturer that meets it. So look at the specs for Energy Star furnaces. It is a little bit different than other ones because there are two different categories, one for products in the south and one for products in the north. Most product lines, washing machines, dryers, and that kind of stuff, it's just one spec. But we have different specs for north and south. Gas furnaces are obviously very popular in the north, and the further north you are, the more heat you run, so they got a little bit tighter spec on that. So in the north, where most of you are from on this webinar, it requires you have 95% AFUE as your efficiency point. AFUE, annual fuel utilization efficiency. Most of you are familiar with that term, but that is the minimum requirement on there. There are two other requirements that must also be met for a gas-fired furnace in the northern area. You have to have an ECM motor. That is a requirement. It does not specify what type of ECM. So you could have an ECM, X13, as some manufacturers call it, that is fine. You could have a fully variable speed ECM. You could have a pulse width modulation variable speed ECM. Any of those three would suffice. And then the third thing that you have to have is 2% air leakage for the furnace cabinet. That one's a little bit harder to figure out on the surface because most of the manufacturers, it's pretty easy to look at their product literature and be like, oh, here's the AFUE and here's the kind of motor they have. Done. Right? But to know the leakage rate of the cabinet, that may not be something that's in their catalog. That makes it a little bit more challenging to figure out, but not impossible. The easiest thing to do is using the website to click on that Find a Product. When you click on Find a Product on the Energy Star website, in this case, almost 1,100 furnaces will come up from various manufacturers. And you can sort them by AFUE, you can sort them by brand, you can sort them by whatever, little drop-down category. Or you can filter on the left-hand side and say, I only want to see natural gas, or I only want to see oil, or whatever it is. And you can filter down, or by brand specifically, you can filter it, and then you'll get a better idea of what's available to you. So when I filter it for the 5 brands of furnaces that our various companies work with, of those 1,100, 272 of them are furnaces, from Bryant, Payne, and Heil, which are the 5 brands that we work with. So you can drill in deeper. If you're specifically a Bryant dealer, you don't want to see all the other ones. You want to see the ones you can see. So you can do that on most of these categories. The other thing I want to point out, which has nothing to do with Energy Star, it's for the local code that we follow in Illinois and in many other states. I think we're up to like 14 states that are on the IECC 2015. it's very probable on most projects you will already need an ECM motor. Because if you're doing a project under the IECC 2015 and you're going to run your ventilation air through the furnace, and by the way, ventilation air is required, and if you're going to run it through your furnace duct system and through that blower assembly, then that motor has to be controlled in an ECM fashion. If you have a separate ducting system that brings fresh air in unrelated to your furnace ducting, that's fine. You can do something different. But if you're going to run it through the furnace, it's got to be an ECM. So you're probably already doing that. And in most new construction, you're already doing condensing furnaces typically because of the tightness of the building. You want to have that separated combustion. So you're already at 90% and an ECM. It's just you want to take the next step and go up to 95 and the tighter leakage cabinet in order to make Energy Star. Not a big leap from code. If we look at Energy Star air conditioners and heat pumps, because it's kind of the same thing really. It's slightly different, but obviously the same kind of product. Once again, overview, specification, buying guidance, and then a product finder on the right-hand side. The overview just gives you some nice language from a homeowner perspective on what these things mean, but probably not super interesting to you guys. We look at the specification of what's required for an air conditioner or a heat pump. So if you look at an air conditioner, it divides up into split systems, which is mostly what we're doing residentially, or package systems, which are basically little mini rooftop units that could be on the roof or on the ground, where everything's in one box. But for split system, you have to meet two things. You have to be 15 SEER and you have to be 12.5 EER. EER, as you know, is the full load efficiency. SEER is the seasonal efficiency, so basically it takes into account part loading. So you have to do both of those. It's not one or the other, it is both. If you have a package unit, it's slightly different. It's 15 and 12 instead of 15 and 12.5. Very similar. If you have a heat pump, it's still those same numbers. You still got to be 15 SEER and 12.5 for a split system heat pump. Plus, you have to be efficient on the heating side. HSPF, heating seasonal performance factor, needs to be 8.5 for a split system. You get that one extra spec requirement if it's a heat pump versus an air conditioner. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. If you click on the product finder, this one works a little bit different than all of the other product finders that are on the Energy Star website. Because there are so many possible compliant products, they can't put them all on the website. It's almost impossible. So they don't want to have literally 300,000 things on there. We had 1,100 furnaces. There'd be like 300,000, air conditioner and heat pump combos, because the combos are always different, right? It's the air conditioner and the evaporator and the furnace blower. And you could have numerous combinations of any of those, times all the manufacturers, times all of their widgets. It gets to be pretty unruly. So when you click on the product finder, Energy Star took the easy way out and said, just go to the AHRI database and look for your product there. And that's where you'll search for 15 SEER and 12.5 EER, or whatever the specs you're trying to meet for that I just showed you on the previous screen. If you're not quite sure how to use the AHRI database, it is kind of challenging. It's not super user-friendly. We do have a YouTube video on our YouTube channel that shows you how to use that. So if you're interested in that, you're more than welcome to go watch it. If you just go to YouTube and search for TEC, Tube, T-U-B-E, our page will come up. And it's one of our videos on there from last year, I believe. And it looks like this with the AHRI logo on it. That'll help you learn how to use that database tool to search for products that comply with anything, including complying with Energy Star. So our first quiz question. I'm going to launch that. Remember, for you guys that need PDH credits, you need to answer these questions correctly. For everybody else, you can do whatever you want. You can answer them for fun, because this kind of stuff is obviously fun. So the first question is, what efficiency, oops, I can't see my screen. What efficiency is required for Energy Star furnaces? Hopefully you guys can all see that question on your screen. You should be able to click on one of those options, right? A is 92% AFUE, B 92% plus an ECM, C 95%, D 95% plus an ECM, E 95% plus a variable speed motor. I'm going to look at the questions you guys are typing in. Other than several folks having some sound quality issues, which I'll have to look at my microphone, which I can't fix right now. Other than that, everyone's questions seem to be easy. 71% of you have answered the poll, so anybody else that needs to do it, please do so. And I'm going to close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it looks like 85% of you got the answer correct, which is 95% AFUE plus an ECM motor. So most people got that, so that's pretty good. Other categories, we'll start going through each one of these HVAC related categories that are on the Energy Star site. You will see a category for duct sealing on there, for Energy Star duct sealing. It's a little bit different than all of the other products listed on there, air conditioners, refrigerators, whatever, in that they don't really specify products on this one because it's hard to specify a very specific product to do duct sealing. Although selfishly, we wish they would, and then AeroSeal could be on there, which we're fans of. But nonetheless, so in this case, it's more of an informational one for the consumer. They talk about duct sealing. They point out that statistically, 25–30% of the air going through your duct system is leaking and lost, which results in higher utility bills and difficulty in heating and cooling certain rooms. So it's kind of an educational thing, and there's a bunch of links on there that go to DOE and other people's documents so the consumer can kind of become aware of duct sealing and its importance. But you won't find a product search finder on here. They're not going to direct you to a specific brand of mastic or something like that. All right, our next quiz question number 2. Which website can you search for Energy Star qualified air conditioners? The choices are A, Energy Star website, B, AHRI directory, C, ComEd, or D, TEC. All right, if anybody has any questions to ask me as we're going, please type them in and I'll try to answer them. I'm going to close this quiz poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it looks like most people got the answer correct, which is B, AHRI directory, although several people answered Energy Star. Energy Star does not have the list of qualified products on their own website for air conditioners. They do it for everything else except air conditioners. Those, they direct you over to the AHRI directory. All right, Energy Star thermostats. This is the new category. This one did not exist at this time last year. It was a new category. So when you go on here, you'll see an overview, which gives the homeowner an idea of how much they might be able to save, which is kind of a crapshoot because everybody's house is different and their utility costs are different, but it gives you an idea of what's going on. It tells you some of the things you'll find in the Energy Star stat, right? Automatic scheduling, energy use data that you can view on your own house, right? Controlling things through a smartphone, some of those things that are very common with these smart stats. But then there's a very specific specification that the manufacturers have to meet in order for their exact thermostat model to be considered Energy Star. So there's a couple different things that go on with that product category. The first one is there has to be a certain accuracy to the temperature sensor, which seems fair enough. Why would you want an inaccurate product? The product itself has to have a low energy consumption, right? So not how much energy is your furnace or whatever you're using, or your air conditioner, but how much energy is the stat itself consuming, which is usually a function of the display and the relays, but it has to meet a certain requirement for that kind of stuff as well. That's kind of the hardware side of what it has to meet. Then there's the software side. So the Energy Star thermostat category allows the manufacturers to really do whatever they want to save the energy. They're allowed to become creative. It doesn't say you have to have X, Y, Z feature. It says do whatever features you want that save energy. But you have to prove to us meaning Energy Star, that you're actually saving the energy. So after a thermostat comes on the market, wait a full year before they can even get Energy Star listed because they have to submit a year's worth of data to Energy Star showing how much energy they actually save. So the stat manufacturer has to collect data from the actual homes and submit it to Energy Star to prove that there is the energy savings. And then there's specific specs you can see on the screen of how much energy at a minimum they have to save on a national average, right? So that's pretty tough to do because some people buy one of these stats and then they never set it up correctly. So that person's kind of bringing your average down, if you will. So on average, they have to save a certain amount of energy in order to do that, and they have to prove it out. It is a very difficult spec, and because of that, there are only 7 thermostats that are actually qualified to be an Energy Star. So Energy Star Smart Thermostat. By the way, there used to be an Energy Star programmable thermostat category. They got rid of that category like 5 years ago or so, mainly because every programmable stat was meeting the spec, and there was pretty much no one didn't need it, so it didn't make sense to have its own category anymore. But now we have this one for smart stats. Only 7 stats comply. As you can see, 2 of them are ones that we have here at TEC, which is the Bryant Housewise and the Carrier Core. And then there's a bunch from Ecobee. And then there's the Nest one and one other one, EcoFactor. And that's it. There's those 7. And I don't anticipate anybody else getting added to the list anytime soon because they're having trouble collecting the data to show that they're saving enough energy. So it is a pretty tight spec right now. There is some other challenges with the spec and anything new that will happen. And that biggest challenge is multi-stage systems. So the current smart stat spec for Energy Star only covers smart stats that are installed on single stage equipment. If your stat is installed on 2-stage or more stage equipment, then that data gets excluded from Energy Star, and they're not taking that data. They're only accepting data for single stage systems. You could have a 2-stage stat, but the data that you're submitting to them still has to be on single stage, primarily because the current Energy Star modeling tool for energy calculations does not support multi-stage equipment. So they don't really know how to calculate it yet, which is kind of a challenge. The biggest issue for us on that end is really smart stats, what we call communicating stats, stats that are smarter than smart stats, right? They don't have relays. They talk directly to the equipment, and they modulate gas valves, and they speed up and slow down inverters on the compressor. Those stats have a real hard time qualifying because, like in the case of ours, Infinity and Evolution stats, they can't qualify because they literally cannot be installed on a single stage furnace. There is no single stage furnace that they can operate. They can only operate these really smart variable speed communicating modulating gas type furnaces. So there's no data to submit to Energy Star, hence they can't be listed yet as an Energy Star product. And the communicating stat manufacturers are having those kind of problems because they don't make their stat so it can be installed on dumb equipment. It's kind of weird. So right now the current spec is a smart stat for dumb equipment. A smart stat with smart equipment doesn't exist yet. However, Energy Star said they're working on that in order to be able to qualify multi-stage product, multi-stage applications for these thermostats. So we'll get there. Geothermal. I know it's not a huge market here in the Chicagoland area where most of you are from, but there is geothermal Energy Star heat pumps. And once again, you got the normal type of information, overview, specs, so forth, and then a product finder. These ones are really efficient. They're like 50% more efficient than like the bare legal minimum, so they're pretty high. And that's because so many manufacturers make these that they can do that. Here's the exact specs you'd have to meet. The specs change whether you have water to air or water to water, and whether you have open loop or closed loop. So you get a slightly different spec. EER, that is the cooling efficiency. COP, that is the heating efficiency. And you guys do field work, you know what those terms mean. These numbers on the screen are for single stage equipment. You can also do it with multi-stage equipment. Manufacturers can get those approved. What they need to do there is they basically average it out. If you have a 2-stage unit, they take the efficiency at high stage and the efficiency at low stage, and they average them together in order to do that. This is only for single-phase residentially rated equipment. There is nothing for geothermal commercial 3-phase stuff at the present time. If you look at there's basically 4,000 units that are qualified, which is a crazy amount. So that's why the spec is so high, because so many manufacturers can do this kind of thing. If we search for the manufacturers that we stock, the 4 that we deal with, there's basically 300 of them on there, which is a lot. It's nearly the whole product line. So it's very hard it's very easy to meet this spec with geothermal. Boilers get divided into residential and commercial categories. And once again, it's based on the product, not based on the application. So I can put a residential boiler in a commercial building and vice versa. But if I have a residential boiler that's rated as a residential boiler, the spec I need to meet for a gas-fired boiler is 90% AFUE. That's the efficiency target. There's some other things that it'll probably have. They're not necessarily requirements, but they'll probably have electronic ignition. I probably need that to get the efficiency anyway. I'll probably have heat exchangers that extract more heat, right? And I'll probably have sealed combustion. But I have to get 90%. So basically all condensing boilers are going to meet Energy Star. All non-condensing boilers are not going to meet Energy Star. It really comes down to being that simple. If it's got PVC venting, it's probably Energy Star. There are 691 boilers that meet that spec, which is quite a bit considering the boiler market is smaller than the furnace market, so that's why the number is kind of small. And we stock quite a few of those. We stock tons and tons of brands of boilers. We're involved with numerous ones, and about 140 of them qualify for the ones that we deal with. Commercially, the spec is slightly different. A commercial sized boiler has to be 94% thermal efficient. So a residential boiler has to be 90% AFUE. A commercial boiler has to be 94% TE, thermal efficiency. Additionally, it has to have a 5-to-1 turn-down ratio, which is just a fancy way of saying it can modulate from 100% down to 20%. So it can't be like a two-stage 50-100 deal. It's got to be all the way down to 20% firing rate, a 5-to-1 turn-down ratio. Those are the two things it has to do. All right. Quiz question number 3. Let's launch that. How many smart stats are Energy Star approved? Question. The answers are A, none, B, less than 10, C, about 25, D, about 50, E, I don't care. All right, almost everybody looks like they are done. So I'm going to close it in 3, 2, 1. And by golly, every single person got it correct. Less than 10 stats are currently qualified as smart stats. So everybody got that one. Fantastic. Commercial. So we talked about commercial boilers a little bit. There's also a commercial category for heating and cooling equipment. Split systems and packaged rooftops are in the same category bucket. It's called light commercial heating and cooling. They say that, and then they show you a picture of what looks like a residential unit. I'm sure it's a 3-phase one, so it's technically commercial, but it is kind of a little bit of a weird picture that they picked. I would have put a picture of a rooftop there if it was me. When we look at the specification, here is what is required. The top table is for air conditioners. The bottom table is for heat pump category. My other phone is ringing right now. Perfect time. Should have muted that thing. So when I look at it, the smaller units, which is basically 5 tons and under, 65,000 BTUs and less, they have a requirement for SEER and EER. Oh, sorry guys. So thank you for telling me that I had the poll screen still open. All right, you should see the slide right now. Sorry about that. So here's the specs: air conditioner on top, heat pumps on the bottom. So for small stuff, 5 tons and under, you have to be 14 SEER. And then you have to have 11 EER if you are a packaged rooftop style unit, 14 SEER, 12 EER if you are a split system style unit. So you have to meet both the part load and the full load efficiency. When you get to the bigger categories of units, so commercial sized units, if you will, which means you're more than 5 tons, then you have to pick, just like with codes, you get a table that says electric heat or no heat, or all other. So gas heat goes under all other. So for a gas packaged rooftop unit, you would have to be 11.5 EER and 11.6 IEER. EER, once again, is full load efficiency on a 95-degree day. IEER, Integrated Energy Efficiency Ratio, is your part load efficiency. By the way, did the sound quality improved? I made a couple tweaks on my end. So if it got better, let me know. If it didn't, that's fine. I'll figure it out. The bigger units above 135,000 BTUs have the exact same specification. So I have no idea why they made them into two tables, other than the fact that maybe they were different at one point in time. But right now they're exactly the same. So same spec. And then heat pumps are down below. Works very similarly. Plus you have to have a heating rating in addition to the cooling. So on the small stuff, you have to have an HSPF. The big stuff, you have to have a COP rating in order for those to qualify. Wow, when you search the database, you got basically 1,500 units that qualify, which is quite a few. If you look over on the left, you can see basically 1,000 of them are split system AC. So that's the big category. If you look at packaged rooftop units, there's 160 gas-fired rooftop units in there. And then, of course, you can also search by specific brand, like we did on all the other categories. And if you look at the brands that we're involved with at TAC, 300 of them would qualify. There's quite a few in there. Okay, so there is something else that's happening down the road here, not that far from now. It's not related to Energy Star directly, but it will affect your packaged rooftop life. The Department of Energy regulates the efficiencies that manufacturers can make of certain types of equipment, including rooftop units. This is independent and separate from Energy Star, and this is independent and separate from energy codes like we have here in Illinois. It's a totally different thing. These are the rules the manufacturer has to follow. So the manufacturer has to follow the DOE rules. You guys, as the designers, installers, builders, engineers, architects, have to follow local codes. It's a little bit weird in that regard. But sometimes these things line up, sometimes they don't. So starting on January 1st, these will be the new minimum rules that Carrier or Bryant or anybody else can manufacture. So for like a 10-ton rooftop, they have to make it be at least 12.7 IEER. Otherwise, they're not allowed to build it anymore. If they have stuff they've already built and it's in their inventory or our inventory or your inventory, you can still sell it and install it as long as it meets your local code. But they can't make any more of this stuff after January 1st. So once it's gone kind of thing. So they'll have to make these new higher efficiency tiers of equipment. And there's, gas units, electric units, and heat pump categories. The only thing in the spec going forward will be the IEER. They no longer will look at ER like they have in the past. They no longer care about full load efficiency. In the grand scheme of energy consumption, full load is irrelevant. Part load is all that really matters. And you've seen that in numerous other webinars that we've done. So you'll see that trend. There are also no other requirements in there other than IEER. So I know codes require special economizers or staging or fan speeds and things like that. And that's great. And you have to follow your local codes. But for DOE, you don't have to do any of that. It's just the IEER that matters. So because that is changing, that IER is changing, and Energy Star needs to be, by definition, something more energy efficient than the bare and legal minimum, Energy Star will have to change too. Now, I don't expect it to change on January 1st right away, but I'm assuming they're starting the process to write the specs to get it changed. So there'll be a new category of Energy Star going forward, different than the table I showed you a minute ago. I know it's kind of confusing, so I tried to put some examples in a table here. If you look at the first column, meaning Energy Star, which is what we're talking about today. The next column, meaning IECC 2015 Energy Code, which many states follow, including Illinois that I'm in. And then the new Department of Energy rules. Right. So if I take a 5-ton example, I got to be 11 EER full load and 14 SEER for Energy Star. I look at the Energy Code. There's no EER requirement, but I still got to be 14 SEER. And then these new DOE rules we're talking about don't affect small stuff like that. 10-ton, which is, the bread and butter everyday rooftop, everybody's uses in all their examples. 11.5 EER, 11.6 IER. But if I look at the local code, the current local code we have here has a higher IER and a lower EER. So just putting a code compliant unit in might not be enough to get me an Energy Star label today. All right, and then going forward, the new DOE rules will be very similar to the current code that we have for IER. And then 15-ton example, same kind of thing. The local code is more stringent on the IER, but less stringent on the EER. So you got to look at each one individually. If someone tells you you need Energy Star, You can't just put a code unit in and think it's going to make it, because it probably won't. You have to pick a very specific unit. All right, so that's just to give you an idea of some examples there. From our end at TEC, once the new rules come out, this is going to be a unit that you're going to see a lot of Energy Star products. We've had it out for several years, but it's kind of like the good, better, best type lineup. It is what our best unit would be. Right? So to get the really awesome IEERs, typically you have variable speed fan motors, you have ECM condenser motors, multiple stages of heating and cooling to get those high numbers. All right, quiz question number 4. Launch that for you. Which product needs to be 94% efficient to qualify for Energy Star? 94% efficient. Is it residential boilers, commercial boilers, both residential and commercial, or neither one of those? This one's a little harder because it requires you to pay attention, which I know is a lot of numbers being thrown at you, but hopefully most of you guys get it. Sounds like some people said the sound improved a little bit when I made that change. Other people said it's pretty similar. So maybe I need a new microphone. Like most people answered, so I'm going to close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And 64% of you got the answer correct. Commercial boilers need to be 94% efficient to qualify for Energy Star. Plus, they have to have the 5-to-1 turn down. For point of reference, residential boilers only need to be 90% AFUE. All right, so I want to point out all the different categories of Energy Star. We looked at most of them that related to HVAC here so far, but there's a whole bunch of them, as you can see in yellow, that are HVAC related. We did the heat pumps, boilers, air conditioner, commercial boiler, ductless. If you click on ductless, it basically drives you back to the regular air source heat pump. So they're kind of considering that just to be a heat pump. But they know from a verbal marketing awareness standpoint, people might be searching for it differently. So it has its own drop down on here, but it just drives you back into air source heat pumps. We did furnaces, we did geo, we did light commercial. We didn't talk about room air conditioners, but most of you guys don't install room air conditioners anyway. We talked about Thermostats, and then there's also ventilation fans, which we didn't get to. Plus, a lot of you guys do water heating, plumbing type work. So there's categories of stuff for that as well, for both gas-fired storage tank heaters, tankless gas-fired, and heat pump water heaters. 2 other ones I wanted to point out specifically on this list. Most of you don't care about lighting, electronics, freezers, and stuff like that. But I did want to point out under appliances, you see air purifiers up there. That is not the kind of air purifier that you guys install in the HVAC world. These are portable room air purifiers that someone would buy from Walgreens or wherever, the Sky Mall catalog or whatever, and set that on their counter, something like that. It does not include duct mounted solutions like most of you install. So don't waste your time skimming that category trying to figure out why your favorite product's not there. Same kind of thing with dehumidifiers. These are set up for standalone portable dehumidifiers. This specification does not include the whole house ducted dehumidifiers that some of you guys install. So don't waste your time looking for stuff over there. You won't. So a couple more things, or really one more thing. In addition to Energy Star qualified products, there's actually a higher tier of products available. It's called Most Efficient. And they put this list out each year. So the current one is Energy Star Most Efficient 2017. This is like the best of the best type of stuff that's even better than the regular Energy Star unit. It's even more energy than that. From an HVAC perspective, it only affects 4 of the product categories we talked about, which would be boilers, air conditioners and heat pumps, furnaces, and geothermal. Right? For a lot of stuff like the furnaces and air conditioners, actually even geothermal, in order to qualify, you're going to have a special thermostat involved. So it's not just getting up to, in this case, like a furnace. Usually it's going to be 97% furnace with a variable speed fan and a communicating thermostat that can drive those 97% furnaces and their modulating. So the furnace spec or the air conditioner spec may even tell you to get that category, you have to have a certain thermostat on the wall. And by the way, it won't be the same thermostats that are in the smart stat category, because the ones that make these furnaces and ACs more efficient are not the ones that are on the smart stat list. They're the ones that are specifically integrated into these furnaces. So a little bit different thing there. But that's something to kind of pay attention to, especially if someone really wants to get like the best of the best. Energy Star endorses these, I shouldn't say the word endorses, lists and approves these certain types of units. All right, our final quiz question here. This should be an easy one, hopefully. Today's webinar was about which Energy Star program? A, Energy Star for homes, B, home performance with Energy Star, C, Energy Star buildings, D, Energy Star certified products. This may be the first webinar I've done in about 7 years where nobody is typed in any technical questions for me to answer. Like we're going to be done like 10 minutes early because you guys didn't try to stump me. So last chance to type in a question and ask me. Or maybe the sound quality was too choppy and nobody wanted to adventure out. I'm going to close the quiz question in 4, 3, 2, 1. And everybody did, in fact, get that correct. If you had registered and said that you needed a PDH certificate for professional engineers, and if you answered the questions correctly, then, passing score type thing, then you will be emailed a certificate. Usually it's a week later, but the person that makes them is out on vacation this week, so it may be 2 weeks before you get it, before she gets back and grades them and sends them all out. There's usually a lot of them. All right, any final questions anybody would like me to try to answer? All right, so with that being said, I will go ahead and close the webinar, and hopefully the recording panned out. And I apologize for the audio issues that some of you are having. It sounds like it was probably on my end because several of you had the same issue. So I will try to get a new microphone and get that fixed before we do the next webinar. So I apologize for that. Thank you guys for your time.